Alright guys, we're going to make some crusty bread today. We are going to start with yeast, and this is how I measure it. About that much, and then about half of that tablespoon. To that yeast, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar. And I'm using an actual spoon, a big spoon, not the actual. This is just how I taught myself to do it. So that's what I'm doing. You're going to want 2 cups of hot water. I use this Thermopin to test it because you want your water no more than 110 degrees. So somewhere between 105 to 110. And I'm adding 2 cups of water. I'll do that in just a second. Okay. It's at 111. 110. Alright, so we're just going to add that 2 cups in. I'm going to take that spoon and stir it around. And we're going to let this sit for like 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and let that yeast bloom. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes. Do you see how fluffed up the yeast is, how bloomed it is? That's what you want. If you don't see that it's bloomed up, then your yeast isn't any good, or your water was too hot. So now we're going to add some flour. So I have this scoop in here that is equal to a cup. So I just kind of, let's see, can you see? Add that much in each scoop. I start with 3. I usually end up adding 6 to 7. So I'm gonna fluff up my flour. Add that in. I'm going to stir this together. Okay, so I added in those 3 cups of flour. I'm letting it stir together for a second. I'm going to lower that back down and show you that's what it's looking like. So that's 5. So before I mix that in, I'm going to do olive oil. 1, 2, about 3 tablespoons. We're going to start mixing that together. Okay, that's what it looks like with the 5 cups. Now I'm going to add in some salt, and it's got that olive oil in there. I just use fine sea salt. I use Redmond's real salt for most stuff, but not my bread because I don't get the fine. I end up getting the coarse is what I order in a 50-pound bag. So, and I just kind of measure with my heart on the salt. Oh, I know I'm going to need more flour, so I'm going to add in that 6. And this is one of those that's anywhere from 6 to 8 cups of flour. But you've got to learn what it's looking like. And that's how I learned how to make bread, not necessarily your equal measurements, but what it looks like. So I'm going to let this knead for a little bit and come together and get all off the sides, and I'll be right back. Okay, I know for a fact I'm going to need more flour just by looking at it, even though I don't have it all off the sides. So we're going to add some more. Fluffing up my flour. Just a smidge more. That one was a little shy. You'll start to see these threads. You see how it's getting stringy but still pulling off the sides. Before we add any more, we want to make sure that everything's come together off the sides. And it looks dry, but as it kneads, that oil is going to disperse in there, and we want it to where it's not really sticky. See how it's starting to stick back again? That tells you you're going to need more flour, because it's getting really sticky again. So we're going to turn that off. And I'm going to add, this is where if you're not used to it, you want to do a tablespoon at a time. I'm kind of used to it, so I know that was about half a scoop. And I'll see where we're at here, but it's important that that's where you kind of pay attention. See, it looks like it's trying to come together as a dough ball, but yet it's still spiraling out. You want to make sure it picks everything up from the sides. Let it knead for a second. It looks like to me it's going to need just a little bit more. But what you're looking for is for it to come together as a ball. So I'm going to add just a little bit more. And your humidity and everything plays a part. So if it's super dry or humid, if your house is really warm, different things. So that's why I don't like to give exact measurements. I want you guys to learn what it's supposed to look like, opposed to exact measurements, unless you want to break out a weight scale and weigh everything every single time. Okay, see how it's kind of looks like it's shredding on the sides? That is looking like it's a hydrated, stiffer dough, and that's what we're wanting. But as that pulls all that together, it'll make a dough ball. So what you're going to want to do is when it gets to this stage where it's not super sticky, but it's starting to go up the dough hook to make a ball, then you're going to let it knead for 5 minutes. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to let it knead for the 5 minutes, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so after 5 minutes, this is what it looks like, to where the dough ball has kind of spun up onto the hook. There might be a little bit of remnant around the edge, but you can scrape that together into your dough ball. So you're going to take it off your dough hook. This is my favorite tool. My kids got this for me for Mother's Day. It is an actual KitchenAid bowl scraper or dough hook scraper. I usually just pop this out. I have all this out of the way so y'all can see. So I just scrape the dough down, because that's what you're looking for. I mean, you can do it with your hands. I just prefer to use this, just cleanliness and getting the rest of the dough off of my hook. You don't have to be that precise. I just do it for cleanup. Okay. So now your dough, all of this around the edge, you can kind of scrape it together And I don't even take it out. You'll see, there we go. I don't even take the dough out. I just kind of spin it around, get all the excess, as much as I can, added to the dough. This will make either one really large Dutch oven crusty bread, or you can make 2 large baguettes, or you can make 4 large sandwich rolls. I mean, I'm sure there are other ways you can break that down. I also have another dough recipe, but this is what you're looking for. Your dough ball to just all be together, and when you touch it, it doesn't stick to your hands. So what I do is I just scrape it all together. I forgot my spray oil, so I'm just going to put a little bit over the top. Just kind of pat that on there, rub it all over. And then I go around the sides. Usually I use my spray oil, but I didn't have it over here, so this is what we're doing. I go around the sides. I would just spritz it, and that's so when your dough rises, it's not sticking. And then I take a towel, cover it up, and we are going to put it into my oven with just the light on. And just set it in there with just the light on. Timer set, 2 hours. All right, guys, we'll see you back here in 2 hours. Okay, y'all, so 2 hours later, this is my dough. I accidentally bopped it when I got it down. It was up to here, so it kind of deflated when I was getting it out of the oven. But we're going to dump this out on my clean counter. There we go. And I mean, the majority of it came out, but I'm going to take this rubber spatula. It's made for KitchenAid stand mixers. Get the rest of that dough. So you are just going to shape this how you want. If you wanted 2 baguettes, you would roll those out. I'm going to set my bowl right there. I usually just take this and kind of press it out. I'm sorry I don't have a better angle here. Let's see. I guess that's the best angle it's going to get. Let's try that. I need to get a new camera holder, but basically I'm just getting some of the air pressed out of it, and then I'm going to start. You can flour your surface if you want to. I find that I don't think that it's necessary with the dough that I'm using. So I'm just going to get it to turn over on itself. And then I'm going to take and grab this, push down, and tuck as I spin with the palm of my hand. And what you're doing is you're putting tension on the top of your dough. So I just want one large crusty loaf. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and get a little bit of flour. I mean the teensiest bit, because you don't want a lot of flour. I personally don't. Some people like to kind of cake theirs. I personally don't. I don't think it's necessary to have a ton of flour on the top. And I just kind of move it around and pick up the rest of the This is just parchment paper that I crinkled up and moistened slightly. I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to put it on that paper. So you could put it back in this bowl. You could let it sit just like this. I am just going to let it sit here with a towel over it. We're going to let this rise for 20 minutes. I just let the parchment kind of help hold the towel up. We're going to let it sit there and rise just like that for 20 minutes while our oven is preheating with our Dutch oven in it for 30 minutes. So I went ahead and put mine in, and that way it had 10 minutes ahead before I started this. And we're putting it at 400 in a Dutch oven. I'll show you here in just a second. Okay, so this is piping hot, just came out of a 400-degree oven. This is now what the bread looks like after it's risen. I'm going to take a sharp knife. You can use a razor or whatever you're going to do. I already had a little air bubble right here, so I'm going to use that and slice across here. And if you want to do whatever kind of different cuts, the reason you're doing a cut is to let some of the air escape so it doesn't burst open and crack on its own. I always leave my heat pads on here so I remember not to touch this. Put that down in there, just like that. We're going to put this lid on here and put this back in a 400-degree oven for 30 minutes. I'll show you when it's done. Alright guys, I'm getting the bread out of the oven. So the last 10 minutes I took the lid off. And that's what it looks like. Set you back down here so I can take this out. Super hot. I like to put, so I'm going to check it real quick. Oh. Okay, so I always like to check the temperature, and I use this thermopen like I do when I'm checking the temperature of the water when I'm blooming the yeast to make sure that it's done, because sometimes they're darker than others, but you want to make sure that it's at 200 degrees, and that's how you kind of know. So we're going to take this out, and don't forget this cast iron pot is 400 degrees, so be careful. So I'm going to set this to the side here in just a second, but I want y'all to see this bread. to usually put it on a rack, just like a cookie baking rack, because it's going to have condensation because it's so hot and you don't want it to sweat. So here in just a second, I'll take it and put it on a rack. But that is our Artisan crusty bread. Get in the kitchen. You guys can do it.